If you checked out the title of this video, you know I'm going to be making a device that incentivizes you to stop texting and driving. Subscribe! I'm going to explain how that texting and driving device works and then go over the results of the hilarious experiment I ran. But first, I want to explain the inspiration for that, and it had nothing to do with texting and driving. Since I've been working remotely, like everyone else, I've been spending a lot of time at home, and during my lunch break, I sit in my living room to eat and watch TV. The problem I have though, and maybe you can relate, is as I watch TV, I'll look down to take a bite of my food, and when I look back up, I missed an important part of my show. I mean, there's been times when I've had to rewatch the same 5 seconds multiple times. So this is what I built. It's a device that when I look down, presses pause on my remote. Then when I look back up, it presses play. So to build this, there were 2 questions I had to answer. How do I detect when I look down? And how do I press play and pause on the TV remote? To detect when I look down, I thought of 2 options. One option was to use a camera to track my eye movements. I did some research and could use computer vision to track my eye and detect when I look down. But looking through some of the examples and realizing it'd require a decent amount of setup, it seemed like such overkill for such a simple task. So the second option, which is a lot simpler and what I ended up going with, is using a sensor that can detect movement. The sensor has a gyroscope which measures rotation and an accelerometer which measures linear acceleration. So basically it can detect when I move and know which direction I moved or rotated in. It also has Bluetooth in it, which is great, so I can send data from the sensor to the code that I write. The sensor is pretty small, so I 3D modeled and printed a part that lets it clip onto my glasses. So as I move my head, it knows which direction I'm moving in. I'm still pretty new to 3D modeling, so it took me a good few tries to get the correct measurements so that the sensor could fit into this cavity perfectly flush. But I got it to work and it clips snugly onto any type of glasses. To actually press play and pause on the TV remote, we use a solenoid and another part I 3D modeled and printed to hold the remote. And if you saw my last video where I made a freaking robot that plays Guitar Hero, you'll know a solenoid is an electromagnet which pushes and pulls a metal rod when it gets power. By the way, I built cool and ridiculous stuff like that Guitar Hero robot all the time. I'm actually currently working on a cool project with these cap guns and taking them to a much bigger and epic level, and it's insane. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to see something awesome, you should subscribe. But back to this, the remote slides into this part I printed and the solenoid lines up with one of the buttons. The solenoid is connected to a Raspberry Pi, which is just a computer and the brains of the operation. I picked up a charging bank to power the Pi and the solenoid so I'm not tethered to a wall outlet. So when I look down, the sensor knows I look down, uses its built-in Bluetooth to send a signal to the Raspberry Pi, then that triggers the solenoid to press the play or pause button. So now every time I go on my lunch break, I can eat in peace and watch my favorite videos without missing any content. And by the way, you'll see how all of this is connected to texting and driving in just a minute. As you can imagine, I'm always thinking of ideas, and over the years, I've thought a lot about texting and driving and how unnecessary and unsafe it is. I mean, 1 in every 4 car accidents in the US is caused by texting and driving. Now I know this is a really tough problem to solve, and I feel like the actual solution is self-driving cars or some other great technology, but I do have this great way to detect if someone looks down. So I thought there was an opportunity to build something that might incentivize you to not text and drive. And I don't text and drive. In fact, I don't even own a car. But my friend Ryan drives a lot. I don't really know if he texts and drives, but I want to make sure that he never does. So this is how we're going to make sure he drives safely. We're going to detect when he looks down and then punish him for doing so. Like I said, we already have a way to detect when someone looks down. And if you think about it, looking down to eat your food is kind of the same motion as looking down to text and drive. So that part's all set. But instead of pausing the TV, I was thinking about doing something negative to train Ryan to not look down and text. I thought about blowing an air horn in his face, automatically removing money from his bank account, or posting "I'm currently texting and driving" every time he texts on social media. But unfortunately for Ryan, I wanted something with physical pain because I thought it would have a bigger impact. So I eventually landed on shocking the driver. I was gonna build my own shocking device, but that didn't feel super safe. So I eventually went to Amazon and bought an electric dog shock collar. Now, before I ran the experiment and shocked Ryan, I felt like it was only fair to do some tests on myself and feel that pain. All right, the dog shock collar came in. I have it here, I assembled it, and I put on the metal contacts, which are super intimidating. It has 16 different shock settings and it's controlled by this remote. So we can start at the lowest setting, which is 1, and work our way up to 16 potentially. So, oh my God, I'm terrified. I don't even know if I felt that actually. Let's try again. I didn't feel anything there, so that was number 1. Maybe we'll crank it up to 5, I guess. I feel like I'm doing it wrong and I'm gonna do it right and it's just gonna hurt. Yep, got it. It doesn't hurt that bad. It was more the initial. Number 8. Oh my God. We'll try number 10. Oh, subscribe. Oh my God. I feel like we just gotta max it out. Go to number 16. All right, number 16, max. 3, 2, 1. Oh! Subscribe. Yeah, very painful. This will work perfect. So now the question was, how can I trigger the electric shock on the collar? Originally, I thought about reverse engineering the remote and mimicking the behavior of the remote so that the Raspberry Pi could send a signal to the collar. But as I looked more into it, it was clear that this was a complicated solution for a very simple problem. So I didn't do that and instead approached it the same way I did with the TV remote. I made a 3D model to hold the shock collar remote and attach the solenoid to press the shock button. And it may not be the most elegant and compact solution, but it works for this and can easily be placed in the car. Now it was time to bring it out into the wild and see how it worked. I remember watching Mythbusters when I was younger, and they tested talking on the phone versus drunk driving. They used a driving course to collect data and see the results. I thought that was a great idea, so I built a course of my own. There are 4 sections of the course. We start off easy with a simple straightaway where Ryan has the opportunity to send a lot of texts. That leads into the curved road section where Ryan will have to weave back and forth to stay within the boundaries. After that, we have another straightaway where Ryan will need to accelerate and then stop at the cones at the end. The last section is the accident avoidance challenge where Ryan will accelerate, I'll say left, right, or center, and he needs to make that lane change. We're gonna be doing 2 runs through the obstacle course. First, as a control, Ryan is tasked to send as many texts as he can as he drives through the course. We'll be doing a total of 3 laps. Then we'll run through the course again, doing the same 3 laps, except Ryan will have the shock collar on him and he'll get shocked every time he looks down to text. And we're not putting the shock collar on a low setting. We're cranking it up to one of the highest settings, which, as you saw, was pretty painful. Oh! Subscribe! For both tests, we want to simulate the real world where Ryan would feel like he has a sense of urgency and needs to send a text. So to do that, we're going to motivate him with $10 for every text he sends. But if he goes out of bounds or knocks down any cones, we'll mark that down and remove $10 from his bankroll for every offense. Let's get started. Texting and driving, control, no shock collar. In 3, 2, 1, begin. Oh. Left. How's the texting going? You say anything interesting?
Yeah.
Perfect. Left. All right, nice. Are you going to read these? In the control with no shock collar, Ryan sent 10 texts, making him $100. He made all 3 lane changes successfully, but he knocked over 2 cones and was late to stop twice. With 4 errors, that brings his total down to $60. Now it was time for the shock collar run. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right, you want to test it out?
I can't. I'm frozen.
Ah! Subscribe.
Ah! The poor dogs.
All right. Oh my God.
You're definitely crashing.
Texting and driving with the shock collar. In 3, 2, 1, begin.
I don't need to talk to that, buddy. I can't do it. This is what you're going to do. Left turn. Right here. Feels so good. I can't even do anything. Yeah.
Middle. That's it. That's 3 laps. How you doing, man?
fantastic. I'm never texting and driving again.
The results are in, and Ryan, thank you for donating your body to science and for being a great friend. In the shock collar run, Ryan never sent a single text, making him $0. He made all 3 lane changes successfully, but he also knocked over 8 cones. And not only did he miss the stop all 3 times, but he didn't even attempt to slow down. With 11 errors, that brings his total to negative $110, making him a grand total between the control and shock collar runs of negative $50. But because he's a good friend, I sent him some money anyway. So in conclusion, is this the texting and driving solution that humanity needs? No, of course not. It makes texting and driving way more distracting and dangerous. But is it hilarious and ridiculous? Absolutely. If you've liked this, you should subscribe. I build ridiculous things and do experiments like this all the time, and it's a ton of fun. So thanks for watching.
Should we try one on the neck?
What?
On the neck?
Yep, that's worse.